Lab 8, Population, Genetics, and Evolution. This lab analyzes the Hardy-Weinberg law of genetic equilibrium to study the relationship between evolution and allele frequency in a sample population. According to the Hardy-Weinberg equation, the population's allele and genotype frequencies will remain constant from generation to generation, given a large population, random mating, no mutation of alleles, no differential migration, and no selection. In the lab, playing cards with homozygous recessive, homozygous dominant, and heterozygous genotypes will be used to simulate population changes from generation to generation.
The deck of cards represents the sample population in our experiment. The red is the homozygous recessive. The black is the heterozygous and the homozygous dominant. We're going to be doing this 3 times, and each one represents a generation. The data we collect, we're going to put it on this table, and later on we're going to calculate the Hardy-Weinberg equation constants. In this experiment, there are no controls because the second and third generations are randomly chosen. There are no independent or dependent variables. In the first generation, we put out 10 cards. 6 are black, 4 are red. So 40% of them are red and 60% are black. Because the red represent the homozygous recessive, they are selected against. So after the first generation, we're going to remove 3 cards and add just a random number of new people for the new generation. Okay, so in generation 2, we had 3 reds and 11 blacks. The reds were selected against, but they still are here through random selection. In generation 2, we have 3 reds and 11 blacks. So the percent red is 3 divided by 14. So we have 2.14 of the population as the reds and 11 out of 14. .786 of the population is the blacks. So for generation 3, we again have to remove 3 of the reds representing the homozygous recessive, and we're just going to add a random amount of cards. The new population in the third generation is out of 22 cards. There are 18 black ones and 4 red ones. Go. So the percentage of reds in this generation is 0.182, and the percentage of black cards is it's 0.818. The percent of reds, which are the homozygous recessive, become Q squared. So Once you have q squared, you do the square roots of these numbers to find it. Q represents the recessive population, and 2pq equals 1. So you just plug in q and you solve for p. Once you have p, you just square it to get p squared, which is the frequency of the blacks or the heterozygous and homozygous dominant populations. So in the first generation, the population of the black cards, which represent again homozygous dominant and heterozygous, are 37%. In the second generation, about 54%, and in the third generation, 57%. The frequency of each of these populations are as stated. And because this is the black cards, these are the red cards, which again represent homozygous recessive of any trait. 63% for the first generation, about 46% for the second generation, and 43% for the third generation. The Hardy-Weinberg equation, p squared plus 2pq plus q squared equals 1, was used to find the frequencies of alleles in this population simulation, and as long as the 5 conditions that Hardy and Weinberg set out, which are that the population is large and mating is random, there are no mutations, and no migration, whether immigration or emigration occur, and there is no artificial selection, then this is going to keep happening for our simulation. An error that could have happened during this lab was the calculations from this table to this table. We double checked it, but there could have been calculation errors, either with sig figs or just human errors, gross errors. This experiment relates to the bigger topic of Mendelian genetics, specifically how traits are passed on from generation to generation. For example, left-handed people still exist even though they're selected against compared to the right-handed people, or the trait.